Hey painting friends, it's Stoof. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do an acrylic painting tutorial together. Ta-da! Here is our tutorial for today. I had a request from one of my viewers to paint sea turtles. So here is a sea turtles painting that I created. I have 3 different options for you. So if one of these turtles appeals to you and you only want to paint one, then you're welcome to do that. Just jump ahead to that part of the video. Or you could follow through the entire tutorial with me where I get this painting done from start to finish. To block in the turtles and get the basics done, I have that in real time, and then to get to this finished, more detailed piece, I speed things up a little bit after getting the basics of the tutorial down. So if you are new here and you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss out on future painting tutorials and art updates from me. Let's look at our materials list and then get started with this tutorial. Alright, for my materials today, I have an 11 by 14 inch canvas panel. I have a disposable paper palette, and I'm using heavy bodied acrylic paints. I'm using a variety of different brands with different colors. If you have colors that are similar, then you'll be good. The first color we have is black. We have titanium white. We have lemon yellow, lime green. This color is called sand, but if you have like a beige type of color, that would be good. This is phthalo green, alizarin crimson, burnt umber. This color is called blood orange. If you have something like a coral or a warm orange, that's a good one there. If you have burnt sienna, that would be pretty close as well. We have a dark green, which is from a different brand of paint that I have. This one is kind of like a phthalo green mixed with a brown, an ultramarine blue, a little bit of black, and a little bit of white. So you don't need that color, I guess, but I'm going to use it a little bit today. We also have cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and magenta. I also have a paper towel for wiping down my brushes and a cup of water for cleaning off my paintbrushes. My paintbrushes today are about a 1/2 inch wide angled brush, same size flat tip brush, and a liner brush. All of these are synthetic brushes. Alright, to get started with this tutorial, I'll be focusing on sketching out the turtles first. I'm doing 3 different turtles in this tutorial. The request to see a sea turtle painting tutorial wasn't specific on which species of turtle or which pose or position they would like to see the turtle in, so I'm just going to give you a few different options here. And I'm going to start by sketching out a turtle in the upper right, and I'm just going to start with like a rectangle for the general shape that this turtle is going to fill in. I'm starting to sketch out the turtle with the shape of the head, and the shape is kind of like an oval, but I want to see how large the head is in relation to the rest of the body. So here's an example showing the head is one of those little bars, and if I keep carrying this same size bar over to the end of the turtle, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. So the head is about 1/5 of the size of the body. So now I'm putting a couple little tick marks onto my canvas here so that we can see each little section. I'm just eyeballing about the same size tick mark so I can make sure that the head is 1/5 of the body to keep things in proportion. Now that I have the proportions set, I can go about the shape of the head, which is kind of an oval with a bit of a flat top there, and then it kind of curls under at the bottom, and then the neck comes in a bit from the bottom of the chin at an angle, about a 45-50 degree angle. The back of the shell starts out just below where the head meets the neck, and the angle of the shell starts out curving up to the left and then flattens out a bit and then curves slightly down to the right at about a 15 to 20 degree angle until you get to about that 3rd tick mark, and then around that 3rd tick mark to the left it increases in angle and starts to more steeply curve down until you're about halfway between that last tick mark. And then for the bottom part of the shell, we first need to sketch out the fin or front arm, and that angle comes down pretty steeply, close to where the edge of the top of the shell is there. We have this nice flat section where the shell continues, and then it makes about a 45-degree angle to that second tick mark, and then gently slopes down to meet up with the back of the shell. That's where we have the bottom of the shell. Now I'm going to get the back bottom part of that front arm. That kind of comes down at an angle there to about that third tick mark. It curves down a little and then over, kind of like a flat line there. The arm then connects over from the front to the back, and we have a pretty wide front arm. They have larger front limbs than back limbs. And now that we have that top and bottom of the top half of the shell, now I just do pretty much a straight line that curves slightly up at the end to get the bottom half of the bottom part of the shell. So now we have the top shell, the bottom shell, and the front arm and the head. Now I'm going to get the front left arm that is facing kind of away from the viewer, going out into the water there. This one curves a bit at the top and then has a steep angle down. For the top part of that arm, the lower part of the arm sketch meets up with it. And we're just starting to get a little bit out of my little rectangle box here. There's that nice curve at the bottom part of this front arm, or flipper, whatever you want to call it. I guess technically it's an arm. And then we have just a little dot for the eye. I just want to see in general where I'm going to place that eye on the head. And I'm going to start to sketch in those little back legs. The back legs are much smaller than the front legs, and they start around that fourth tick mark going into that last little section. You want this angle for the little back leg to be not as steep as the angle of the shell, so a little bit more shallow of a leg there. And then the other leg isn't really visible there. There's just that little bit of that sketch mark there to see where the other leg would be, farther away from the viewer. And now in general we have things sketched out. I'm just putting a couple little streaks there on the shell to help give you an idea of what we're going to be doing once we start to add detail to this turtle. And now that we've got that first turtle sketched out, I'm going to go ahead and start sketching my second turtle. This turtle, we see a lot more of the top of the shell from this angle, so I'm going to have more of a square shape for this general section that the turtle is going to be taking up. And to start this sketch, instead of starting with the head, I'm starting with the shell shape. So in general, we have about an oval shape for the shell. I want to get that little spine line that to get some symmetry on the shell here first. So I have that slightly curved line there that gives us a little bit of the shape of the ridge of the shell. Now that that's blocked in there about center from top to bottom, add a little bit of an angle. Now we can start to get the outline of the bottom part of the shell. And this is a tricky part because getting the shape of the shell is important in showing dimension and showing the right proportion for most of this turtle here. So from this angle, we have that deep curve at the bottom, and you see a little bit less of the upper half of the shell from this angle that we're looking at this turtle. So putting that ridge line, that slightly curved ridge line that we put in first, is going to be super important in accurately getting this turtle sketched out. So right now that kind of looks like, you know, a nut with a little slit there where you crack open the nut or something like that, or like a pod, you know, with a little cut in it. But once we get more detail in, you'll be able to get the shape of the turtle all coming into view. So next we have the head, and the head basically comes out from that central part of where that ridge meets the right side of the oval in the upper right, and it's just another oval for the head with a little bit of a space for the neck. For the front left arm, it's basically a straight line going up to start, and then it curves, nice little elbow curve there, and starts to go, I guess that I made it not quite a straight up and down there. I made it a little bit of an angle to the upper right even more, and then that arm just kind of comes in and back down. The arm here is a little bigger than the head, just about the same width where the neck comes into the body and where the arm comes into the body or the shell. And then for the bottom right arm, about the same size as that upper arm, just coming out at slightly a different angle here, but about the same size. So if you take your brush and see how long you made that left arm, you want to use about the same length for your right arm. Now for sketching in those back legs, those are pretty quick and easy. It's just a couple little curved lines, and you want the left leg to be above that spine and the lower right leg to be on the lower side of that spine, just to give it that nice symmetry. Have kind of like the flatter shape at the base of those feet, and we don't really see a tail or anything. We do have that little eyeball there just to pinpoint where that's going to be, and in general we have this turtle sketched out, so that was a pretty quick, easy one. And for my final turtle, I wanted to paint this one swimming towards the viewer here, with the head being much larger than the rest of the body because of that angle with the turtle coming towards us. So this is probably the trickiest one to sketch out, just because the viewpoint is so much different than those other two, and the proportions are going to be much different. So because the head is larger here, first I'm looking at just getting that general shape of the head. And I'm putting these tick marks down again to get 3 little sections, so those 4 tick marks, and seeing that the head is going to take up about 1/3 of this turtle, just in the head comparison to the shell. So we're starting with the head is going to be in this central little region, taking up about 1/3 of the space, and it starts out with a flat top that comes curving down to the left. There's that little beak and a steep angle down to the base there. We have a little bit of the neck curving down. For the head top of it, it kind of curves down a bit there, and we start to see a little bit of the shell where I just put that marking. Next, I'm just sketching in the fin or the arm on the left arm. So he's swimming towards us, that's his left arm. And that's just kind of that round, curved, little like jelly bean shape. And for the underside of the shell, we have that slight curve, and then those 2 little dips under the arm area. The 2 back legs are pretty small, little circle, oval, angled oval shapes there you can see. And then we have a little curve where the neck comes down and meets up with this arm, and this arm curves out to the left and down, out to the right and down, and then in general up and back into the shell area. So in general, that is the shape of this turtle. I know he's looking a little wonky right now, but once I get the shading in, that really makes this turtle make more sense. All right, so I'm going to start by just quickly blocking in a background here. I'm going to take some of my cerulean blue, white, and phthalo green. It's mostly white paint there. And I'm just going back and forth, going right up to the side of the turtle. Back and forth, making sure I had good coverage of paint on both sides of my brush. Going back and forth right up to the turtle outline, even covering up the line just a little bit. covering up the dots. And just covering in all that empty space. Taking more white and phthalo green, going back and forth up here until I get to the top. These turtles are all underwater, so I'm just doing like a shallow reef type of environment for these guys. Taking just some whites at the top there. Leaving a few of the streaks in there, and it'll look a little bit more like breaking water at the top. And as we're coming down, I'm going to start to mix in more cerulean blue and my phthalo green. Even more cerulean blue here. Going up under that turtle to the base. And I want to block in this background all at once while the paint's still wet, so I can kind of blend it like this. And I'm keeping it a little bit of a choppy blend. Like I said, I'm not doing like a perfect smooth transition because this will make it look more like distant water, or water we're seeing farther in the background. And you want to think about where you're putting your brush strokes so that you can have them in general going back and forth smoothly. Taking a little bit of my lime green here. I'm just mixing a little bit of that in there. And you can cover up a little bit of your turtle if you want, if that makes it easier to get your back and forth motions with the brush. Taking more of my ultramarine blue now. And starting to get darker. Gonna mix even more cerulean and whites into that. Just making sure it's nice and twirled around on the palette. All right, next making it down to this turtle. Going back and forth, kind of outlining the turtle first and then going back and forth with the brush strokes to fill in the water. Getting more of my cerulean blue there. And more ultramarine and cerulean, a little bit of brown as we get down here. You don't want to leave any white streaks for the background, or you're going to have to try to rematch those colors later. And I'll take some more brown here and some magenta, and we'll just make like a magenta kind of brownish reef going on back over here somewhere. Can't quite make out what it is. More brown. Just putting those other brush strokes going up and down for where I'm going to have more of the reef visible. And we'll do even more brown and some ultramarine, brown and ultramarine for the base. Mixing a little bit of crimson in there with my green. Could be like some grasses there or something. And we're just finishing filling in all of the background. Now it looks like we've got some seagrass there with maybe some reef back in the background. Alright, so filling in the colors for the turtles, I'm going to start with the one at the top, mixing some white with beige and a little bit of phthalo green. And we're just going to start with that right here. Alright, and then for the underside of the turtle's head, I'm mixing a little bit of ultramarine and a little bit of phthalo green, just with what was already on that brush. Just want to get a little bit of the shadows in the underside of the head, and I'm very gently pressing there so it blends in. Next I'm going to dry off the extra paint on my brush and just take some white and outline the top part of the head there. Just going back over that part with a little white and then very gently pressing to get that to blend. Getting the extra paint off my brush again so I can keep blending that down. So we want this to stand out from the background water. We want the turtle to be lighter at the middle part there and darker at the bottom. Alright, we need more white for this arm that comes out. And some white with a little bit of those other colors got mixed in for this part of the fin. A little bit more of our phthalo green for down here. Oops, and more white because it still should be lighter. And a little bit more phthalo green and white for the underside of the belly. And we'll mix a little bit of brown and phthalo green in and a little bit of our sand and a little bit of our blood orange. Alright, a little more white and sand color up here. Kind of blends down. More sand, a little bit of blood orange right in there. Just a little warmer. Comes up to the top of the head. And for the shell, let's do blood orange and sand, a little bit of phthalo green, and we'll just start with that color for now. A little bit more white and sand right there. And blend that up. A little bit more orange right there. Okay, and then a little bit more of our phthalo green and sand color. Just mixing a little bit of my brown and blue. Okay, now that I've blocked in that turtle, I'm going to take my liner brush, just dip it in the water a little bit, and I'm going to start to add some of the details. So I'm going to take just pure whites, twirl the brush around in there with a little water on it so I can get it nice and thin, and I'm going to just outline the shell. Kind of goes flat right at the end there. There we go. And this kind of disappears behind the neck. Got a little pattern on the shell here. Kind of parallels what we had for the outline. Getting a little more narrow as we get farther back. And then we have one that comes about to the edge of this arm. So right there, and then it stops. Top, it's flat and then curves down like that. That gives us that shape. And there's one more like that there. We have little lines connecting all of these. There's these little patterns. And I'm really gently pressing here to get these patterns and outlines on the shell. And the way that you do your brush strokes, the angle is going to help show the shape of the shell. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to take more of that blood orange and some sand and some lemon yellow and a little bit of phthalo green. I'm going to touch up a couple of spots here. I'm going to take even more of that blood orange color. And I'm just taking the liner brush and just doing these tiny little dabs. Making these lines look a little thinner in some spots. Blood orange, a little bit of brown right here. And a little bit more brown right under that. Alright, and then I'm going to take even more of my sand color and just a tiny bit of my phthalo green and a little bit of white. And I'm going to touch up this base here. Adding more phthalo green as I get down here more. Kind of just fades away. And then I need some brown with phthalo green. And a little bit of blood orange. And we're going to get some shadow here. A little more brown. And yellow. Do a little bit of crimson in there as well. And I'm touching up some of these shadows on the underside of the belly. And I'm going to carry those over to the other side of this arm. And the underside of the turtle's head. Mixing in a little bit of white Now we got more of those shadows done. And I'm going to take more of my white with my phthalo green and that little bit of cerulean. And I'm going to touch up the underside there. Just take some pure white for that bit right there. And I can do a couple little dabs of paint that'll get the kind of scaly look right there. Blood orange and sand color. Do more of those little dots right in here. And this part of the arm or the flipper is gonna be more of that warm color as well. And it kind of transitions to a gray. So I'm just mixing a little bit of black with my colors that I just had on here, putting that down, letting it blend, and mixing in more white and a little bit of that light green. And blending it a little, very softly, going back and forth. Taking more of the sand color for right there. And more of our brownish color right there. And I want that to connect or transition more gently. So I'm mixing more of my white and my green. Just blending that in a bit there. Take a little bit more of my cooler greens for the shadow here. And I'll take a little bit of cerulean and green. Get that little shadow. Kind of just goes all the way down to the bottom of that one. Okay, and then I'm just going to clean this brush, get some more pure white, and now I'm going to do a little like S shape here. Got a few of these. One just goes out, one goes like that. And they all come down. And now these turn into like little circle scale looking shapes. Taking a little bit more of my phthalo green and white. Build up these highlights over here. More green. And we're going to use that for this back little flipper. And mix a little bit of our green. Going to take a little bit of my umber with blue and just darken this back part of the shell. And a little bit more umber and blue to fill in some of these spots. Maybe a little magenta. Okay, I'm going to use a little more blood orange. Deepen some of those colors there. And take a little bit of umber for the top of this head here. We've got a few scales that are the brown and blue. And then for the eye, we'll use black. The eye's just like a shape like that. It's like a little crescent shape. Okay, a little bit more white with my phthalo green. And I'm just going to touch up a couple things here. Like that fin. Mixing more of my green. Use my color dark green there. Just want it to blend into that outline color. A little more white. And then I need white to outline this fin arm. Give them a little highlight in the eye there. And then these need a little highlight. I'll mix a little bit of my lime green and yellow in to just get a little more color. But that's basically it for this guy. Alright, I'm going to let that guy be. Next, we'll work on this one. We need brown and ultramarine blue, crimson. And for this shell, we're just going to start by filling it all in with that color. And I'm going to take more brown, just fill in some spots. Put more brown in the center to bottom part, or my burnt umber, and mixing in a little bit of black and blue and crimson. So it's really dark down here. And now that that's in there, I'm going to take some sand color and some of my lime green and phthalo green, and we're going to use that for our fins, arms and legs. Mixing a little blood orange in there. Just covering up all the white space, and I'll get the head blocked in. Got the shapes filled in now. Take our liner brush. First we're going to take our blood orange with our umber and some sand. And we're just going to take some brush strokes and kind of go back over and add that spine ridge that we had before. And just go back and forth with the brush strokes, kind of following that general shape of the shell. And not really putting as many of those highlights on that underside. They're mostly staying up here. on the top half of that shell. We can take some ultramarine and crimson, and you can just start to add some of these little patterns coming out in different directions on the turtle. You can mix a little bit of white and your cerulean blue in there. Add some more little patterns. Just back and forth in different directions. Alright, and then we'll take white while we still have some of that other color on there, and we're going to outline the lower part of the turtle. And we've got some ridges here. It isn't perfectly smooth, so I'm just adding these little ridges as I go. And I'm only doing the lower half right now. And you'll see why in a little bit. And then here we've got three big shell symbol pattern here. Three of them. So it goes like that. And then the next one has that soft top. Go out. They kind of look like little Pac-Mans, or Darth Vaders actually. They look like little Darth Vader helmets. And those just connect down. And there's another one that goes right there. Alright, now we take pure white. And we're going to add brighter highlights to this top part. Because more light is making it up here. And these also go like that. And then we outline this ridge as well. And just little tick marks where that comes in. Okay, and then for the top part of the fin, I'm going to outline it with my white and a little bit of sand color in there too. And then we just sketch some more little scales, circles for the scales. Lots of little ones. We can mix in some blue as we get farther down here. Gets less bright. And then we can use this with a bit of blue mixed in for the one down here. And just same thing for all of the fins. There. Then for the head, I'm going to take a little bit more of the sand color and touch this part up. Mix in a little bit of my brown and blue. Let that blend to get the underside there. Maybe more brown. There. Okay. I'm just going to take more burnt umber and crimson, and I'm going to touch up some of these white outlines. Mix a little bit of blue in there too. I think this one I did the wrong angle. I want the angle to be a little bit more like this. I'm going to take more of my blood orange and my sand color and just add a few more highlights. Alright, back to brown. Let's add a few highlights on that section there. A few highlights on this little leg. Gonna mix white with some ultramarine blue and just do a few little dabs of that in here. And once you get down to the underside, it's going to be just darker. Can mix a little bit more phthalo green in. More brown with blue. For the head on this one, I'm just going to get some white and outline a few little scales. And then for the eye again, it's just black. Gonna touch up around this guy a little bit where I made a couple little hiccups. So just kind of trying to rematch similar colors that I had in the water. And I also want to fix this head. See, I missed this bit of the shell. There we go. Okay. And our last one, I'll just use the flat tip brush. And we'll start out with our sand color, mix a little bit of that green in there, a little bit of blood orange. And I'm just going to fill in all these shapes first. Mixing in a little bit of crimson and phthalo green. And some of our cerulean blue. Just getting a nice shadow under the beak and the neck. Goes right to this arm. And there's another shadow there. And then we have a shadow down here. Mix in a little bit more sand color, brown. I'll mix a little bit of magenta, white, right there. So it's gonna blend in to that shadow. And we'll get a little bit more of our blues mixed in over here. Take my umber, crimson, black, part of the fin. And this part of the fin. Okay, then I'm going to take more of the sand color with a little bit of the green. paint that in there for the arm, the highlight on the arm. And right here on this arm, take a little bit more sand color. And more of the sand color on the turtle's head. A little bit of magenta as we start to come down. And we need some black for that shell. And now I'll just fill in the spaces. So I'm taking some brown and blood orange and a little bit of my greens. Taking more of our sand color. More brown right there. And more blue here. And more sand and brown. Magenta. Right there. A little bit more green for these back legs. And some black. All right. There we go. Now we got that all blocked in. I'm just gonna fill in this shape here. Okay. Now I'm gonna take my liner brush and we're gonna touch up some stuff here. We're gonna get some black for the eye. So for this eye, I've got like an oval type shape. Big oval, and that same like football shape for the actual eye. And then we need some brown for these markings. And the nose. Then this is the beak. Alright, now after putting those things down, I see some adjustments I want to make here. I'm going to make this eye bigger. And we're going to add that marking there. And there's a marking right there. A deep shadow there. Adding more of my shadows back in. Under here. All right. And then we're just going to have like a grayish brown with a little green in it. And magenta color for where the shell meets the rest of the body. And some highlights on that. So try to keep an eye out for symmetry when you're working on this one. This is definitely the one that comes the least naturally to me. Do an outline for the fin. And we just gotta get like the scales outline going. Top of the head. More over here. And it kind of just goes right up into the flipper there. A little bit on this leg, catching the light, and I made that angle a bit too steep, so I'm just touching that up there. I'm going to take more black and sand, brown. Touch up where that highlight should go. And you could just take some black and we start to get a little bit of the belly pattern. Can't see too much of it though. And then a little bit more of our sand color. Alright, I'll take some more black, put a few of those darker scales in there. And then I'm just going to mix in some of that blue and magenta and white, just to get like a light purple gray color. And now I can just start to add more of the scales just to show the shape of the turtle. And all of a sudden he, is reading like a turtle, makes sense. A little bit more green over there, and on the top of the head, a little bit of white and phthalo right at the beak here. Alright guys, that wraps up our sea turtle painting tutorial for today. Alright guys, that wraps up this painting tutorial. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have recommendations for future tutorials, leave a comment under this video and I will add that to my list of things to paint. Thanks, have a great day, and happy painting! Bye-bye!